here's your host, Jason Voorhees and Aaron Savage.
Ooh, yeah!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Sports and Metal Podcast. We are your hosts. This is Aaron Savage. With me, as always, my partner in crime, Mr. Jason Voorhees.
What is going on?
What's going on, Jay? How are you?
Dude, I am pumped up for tonight's show, man. We got a special guest coming up shortly. But before that, I would like to talk about the concert that I went to last night after you announced our sponsor, of course.
Yes, indeed. I was just going to say, let's not forget, we are being brought to you by our sponsor, La Terrain Watches. You can go to their website, la-touraine.com. That's La Terrain Watches. You can check them out on social media at La Terrain. Use promo code SNM at checkout and receive 10% off your purchase. So why don't you tell us about the show you went to last night, dude?
Well,
live music is back. Live music is back, as we know. So,
as you can see, I bought myself a nice piece of merch while I was at the show. But yeah, so last night I attended the metal show of the year, and let me tell you, this show kicked friggin' ass. Like, honestly, it's been a long time that I've been at a show of this magnitude. Obviously, with 2020, everything was basically canceled. This was actually the rescheduled tour from last year. The original lineup was Megadeth, Lamb of God, Coat headlining, and then it was supposed to be In Flames and Trivium. Unfortunately, In Flames had to back out because of visa situation with COVID protocol. So Hatebreed, joined up last minute. And let me tell you, man.
I see Hatebreed anyway. That's just me.
Well,
In Flames.
I mean, I got to be honest. Like, I'm not really a huge fan of either of Hatebreed or In Flames. So to me, it really didn't matter because I've never really been into that type of music. But although, I mean, I guess you could say Lamb of God is kind of somewhat like Hatebreed, but a little bit different. I mean, to me, Lamb of God is like, a kind of a spin-off of Pantera, so to speak. That's kind of like, what they came out of. But let's just, let's get into it a little bit. Hey, as your mom's checking in, let's say hi to your mom. No, it was just a phenomenal show, man. I mean, obviously, this is like my 13th time saying Megadeth. Obviously, they're my favorite band. For those of you that follow me on Twitter, yes, that's where I got my Twitter handle from, Mustaine3651. Yeah, I mean,
3651. Even I don't know that. At least I don't remember.
Well, when I formed Twitter, I was a nerd, so I had to use my age and Dave Mustaine's age at the time that I formed it. So it's kind of weird, right? But
interesting. So you were 36 and he was 51. Dude, yeah. That's a super fan.
I am. I mean, that obviously it's my favorite band. I mean, it's kind of
that's a cool little bit of trivia that nobody would have known.
I mean, it's kind of like you and Slash. I mean, you know what I mean?
These guys.
Your love affair. Like we all have our own, person that we kind of idolized growing up, and obviously Dave Mustaine for me was, one of them. So, I mean, I'll get to Megadeth in a little bit, but I really wanted to talk about just being at the show. I mean, it was just, like I said, not having been to a big show, and probably for me, it's been since like 2017 was the last big concert that I went to. So it's been quite a few, years, and just the atmosphere. I mean, you could tell that people are just happy to be back. I mean, you had mentioned this a couple weeks ago, when you went to see Guns N' Roses, just the energy and, the sheer nature of what a concert brings out. I mean, and it's just, For those of you that don't follow metal or aren't metal fans, I don't know what you're doing, because metal fans are some of the nicest people in the world. Like when you go to these shows, it's like almost like a family. I mean, I was talking to two guys that were sitting next to me. I didn't know them from Adam, and we had like great conversations. I mean, obviously you couldn't hear a lot like once the show started, but I mean, just the camaraderie that you get at these shows. It's just, for me, that's part of what makes live music so fun. It's not just watching the bands, but actually being with a family.
Yeah, the people that have that in common with you. It's like a brotherhood.
Yeah, and it really was, dude. It was like, I mean, we were talking like, I mean, I must have talked about 30 different, bands. Like we were talking about Iron Maiden, and the one guy was like, "Yeah, I love the new album," and I was, and then another guy chimed in from behind. He was like, "Oh no, I like this album," and it's just awesome because like people that have the same interests are there, and it just brings a kind of a knit, together family of one. And like I said, that to me was, part of what made the show awesome, but. Obviously, like I said, this was the first time I've seen Hatebreed, Lamb of God, and Trivium. And, I mean, that I'm a diehard Lamb of God fan. I've never seen them live. And I got to be honest with you, dude. Like, I know musically you don't like the style that they bring as far as the growling and stuff.
I love the music. I just am not a huge fan of that vocal style.
But I'm going to tell you, dude, being that this was my first Lamb of God show, I mean, you've seen more concerts than me, but I've seen quite a few. So we're both pretty avid concert goers. I got to be honest, dude. They have one of the most energetic bands I've ever seen on stage. I mean, just the amount of first of all, the music that they play, being that it's fast. I mean, I've seen Slayer live, and it reminded me of Slayer. Like, it just like. Every musician just, with the headbanging and like, it's just unbelievable what they brought. And I kind of was like thinking, why does it seem like Philly brings out the best in Lamb of God? And it kind of dawned on me last night because during the show, Randy Blythe, who's the lead vocalist, he mentioned 2 times this guy named Mikey, who's from Philly, who actually broke the band. Like, and I don't know if you knew this, but Lamb of God actually was basically a different name before Lamb of God. They were called what was the name? Burn the Priest. So
yeah, I did know that. I couldn't remember. Yes.
Yeah, I could. I was drawing a blank, so I had to look at it. I mean, generally I would know it, but. So they were called Burn the Priest, and their first album was called Burn the Priest. But then what happened was they changed the name to Lamb of God. And this guy, Mikey, that Randy mentioned like 2 times during the show, he was a huge, producer in Philly. He was like an independent producer. And he put together their first album for $2,500 and then basically broke them big by making little shows in the Philadelphia area. They were playing like clubs in this area. Like, I didn't even know this.
Yeah, I remember we used to watch that DVD of that Lamb of God DVD.
Yes.
Very intense show. Yeah.
Yeah, Philadelphia. So
yes,
the story behind that is now I know why. See, I was always wondering why do they have this connection with Philly? Like, they're not from Philly. They're from the South. But they really – so for whatever reason, Philly brings out the best of them, and they love the show. Like, they actually played an extra song. Like,
that's cool.
So to me, that was phenomenal. And then seeing Trivium, who I know you actually like them, a lot.
I like Trivium. Too. Yeah.
But I gotta be honest, like they're really, I think they're underrated. Like I never really realized how good they were musically. They kind of have, the lead vocalist, kind of like his voice kind of reminds me of Corey Taylor. Like. He has that kind of vocal.
Yeah, Trivium's one of those bands, like, they kind of took the same route as Avenged Sevenfold, whereas, like, their early stuff was real metalcore, a lot more growling vocals, and they definitely started singing more with the clean vocals on their later stuff. I haven't heard their newest record yet, but, yeah, I mean, they definitely are. And honestly, the stuff with the clean vocals, I love it, because musically, they're phenomenal, a phenomenal band. Same as Avenged Sevenfold. Like, I love the stuff when... M. Shadows actually started using his vocal range and his voice. So to me, they're not the same type of band per se. They have a lot of similarities, but their course, their trajectory is very similar.
No, but I think what separates Trivium, and a lot of times I don't think this gets mentioned when we talk about bands, but you can look to bands like Metallica and Megadeth as being like they're not the first to do it, but they're basically where the lead singer is the rhythm guitarist. Like, and that to me takes a tremendous amount of talent. I mean, to play guitar in itself is hard. And then to be able to sing and play guitar at the same time, that's a huge huge skill.
Yeah, and it's not even just a matter of being able to sing and play guitar. Because let's just be honest, a lot of guys can do that. It's being able to sing and play that type of guitar. I think
and play good.
That's the differentiate. Like anybody could strum, A, C, and G chords and sing. I mean, that's a talent in and of itself. I'm not disrespecting people who do that. But when you're playing like speed metal and palm muting and these ridiculous riffs and then some leads and you're singing, that's impressive. That's where where I'm talking about.
Well, and that's what I'm getting at, and that's what I liked about Trivium, because their lead singer is also the rhythm guitarist. So, like I said, overall it was to me, I was very, very blown away by the show. I mean, I've been to plenty of shows where, I've been to a couple shows where the headliner was actually outdone by the opener.
Oh,
and I've also
many times. And
then we've been to tons of shows where you're only really there for the headliner and the opener sucks. So to actually have 4 bands perform at a top level, and let me tell you, Hatebreed, they put on a great show in the beginning. I mean,
yeah, I've seen Hatebreed a few times. I've seen him a few times over the years, and I'd be remiss if I didn't do a shout out to Jamie Josta, the singer of Hatebreed, because honestly, his podcast is one of my favorite podcasts that's out there. If you haven't listened to Jamie Josta's podcast, you need to. Jay, every week he's got great guests. I mean, he's had Mina Caputo from Life of Agony after she went through her transition. That was an amazing episode. I mean, but he always has great heavy metal guests. One of my favorite podcasts. He's had Halford on there, D. Snyder. He's got everybody from glam metal to 80s metal to hardcore to thrash metal on his show. So shout out to Jamie for his podcast. So I had to get that in.
No reason to be sorry. Dude, no reason to be sorry. We're fellow podcasters. Maybe he'll be
shout him out. Yep.
Maybe he'll be a guest. Jamie, if you're watching this or this somehow gets in your attention span, call us. Hit us up. DMs.
Yeah, we'd love to have you on.
DMs are open. Send us a message. But like I said, obviously Megadeth, I mean, honestly, I heard someone sent me a message that Dave looked like he was struggling. I don't necessarily agree with that, because I was at a show a couple years. The last show that I was at, I thought that he might have been at his absolute worst I've ever heard as far as his vocals. And he wasn't hitting every high note, but I could tell that his voice is actually somewhat coming back. And I don't know if that has to do with just having time off and not performing live for such a long time.
It has something to do with it, yeah.
But I thought, overall, Megadeth, you've seen them, dude. They just put on a stellar. Their sound is phenomenal. Their sound live is almost like listening to this.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because you know why? They're technical musicians that are masters of their craft. Anybody who Dave Mustaine brings into that band has to meet that criteria. It's note for note duplications of the record when you see Megadeth. And that's the difference between a band like Megadeth and a band like Guns N' Roses. And there's things I like about both aspects. Like, I like the sloppiness of Guns, but I also enjoy seeing the great technicality of Megadeth. That's Megadeth. When you go to see a Megadeth show, you're seeing a technical show. They're like the Bret Harts of heavy metal, master technicians.
Point on, and it's funny because for me, obviously, the Mount Rushmore lineup has always been David Ellefson, Dave Mustaine, Marty Friedman, and Nick Menza. But I got to be honest with you, dude. I'm starting to come around on Kiko Lurio, and I'm not going to lie to you, dude. Mustaine always has great guitars. You mentioned it. Kiko Lurio, dude, I'm telling you, man, the way he plays, it's not even just what he plays, it's the way he plays it. It makes it look like a kindergarten kid could just pick up the guitar and play. It's just almost like he has I don't know. And I'm not saying he's necessarily better than Friedman, because obviously Friedman,
they're all great. To me, when you get to that level, it's like pick your favorite finger.
It is pretty impressive, though, that he always does have good guitar. I guess that just shows you he's a high standard. But we talked about that too, about how now he wants them all dressed to be like business, because Dave Mustaine always has those nice shirts. They always have to wear a button down. Jeans. They have jeans, but it's always nice, dress jeans.
Yeah, they're not like your typical heavy metal band. There's a dress code to be in Megadeth. You have to have long hair. You have to have a button down shirt, and you have to have nice pants and dress shoes. They're not even wearing sneakers. They're wearing shiny black shoes. Anyway,
Yeah,
dude, I got to get into something too, Jay. I have to. I know you had a chance to check it out, bro. And me being a diehard Mets fan, it was like living the dream this week. If you haven't checked it out, you must check out, in my opinion, and I'm not just saying this because I'm a Mets fan, it comes out as biased. Anybody who I know that has seen it has said the same thing. It is the greatest ESPN 30 for 30 of all time. It's called Once Upon a Time in Queens. It's all about the 86 Mets, but it's about so much more than that. It's about New York in 1986, Manhattan in 1986, and not just in 1986, but it like going back into the mid to late 70s and everything that led up to the way the city was come 1986 and the way the Mets had evolved kind of in like a parallel way to the city leading up to 1986. I mean, it starts in like whatever, it was 77 with the blackout and Son of Sam and these dark periods, and it was a Yankee town. The Mets sucked. But then in 1980, Nelson Doubleday, who's a great descendant of the guy who invented baseball, Abner Doubleday, he bought the team along with the Wilpons. They hired Frank Cashin as the GM, who had all that success with the Baltimore Orioles in the 70s, those great Orioles teams. And they hired him to just turn the franchise around. The Mets were a moribund franchise. They drafted Darryl Strawberry. They drafted Dwight Gooden. They had Mookie Wilson in the system. They made trades where they acquired Ron Darling. They got Sid Fernandez from the Dodgers. They drafted Lenny Dykstra. I love the part where they talk about when Lenny Dykstra was in California and he was so undersized. He was like 5'7", 130 pounds, and he went to some open tryout. Was it a Mets tryout? I don't even remember what tryout in particular it was, but went to some open tryout. Maybe I don't remember. It was college, whatever. And they get there. When he gets there, they're like, Who are you? He's like, I'm Lenny fucking Dykstra. Like they thought he was the bat boy. I'm Lenny fucking Dykstra. I'm the best player here. I just love the cockiness of Dykstra. But dude, I mean, the whole thing just brought me back to my childhood. And one of the things I could take away from this, you will never see, not just in baseball, but in sports and just in anything, you will never see anything again like the 1986 Mets in the Me Too era. It's from a bygone era. It can't ever happen again. It's a moment encapsulated in time. And I'll get more into it, but I wanted to hear your thoughts.
Well, I mean, first and foremost, I mean, you said you didn't want to be biased. I mean, I got to be absolutely honest with you. Now, I didn't see the part two. I mean, I didn't see part 3 and 4.
That's one thing I didn't say. It's 4 hours long.
It was a 2-day show.
Yeah, I mean, they put a lot of time into this thing. It's not your typical 30 for 30.
Yeah. Well, so I saw part 1 and 2.
Yep.
But I didn't see 3 and 4 last night because obviously I was at the show. But honestly, I agree with you, dude. Matter of fact, I think I was the one that called you yesterday, and I said, dude, it was the best documentary I've seen in probably forever.
It's unbelievable.
I mean, I've seen some good documentaries, not sports related, that were great, but I'm just saying in general, just and being that I'm not a Mets fan, it didn't matter because I enjoyed that like I was a Mets fan. That's kind of what I got out of it.
Yeah.
Being an outsider, I actually, because I don't know, because those teams were so exciting. Like, because I remember being at your pop-ups and we were just obviously young babies. Like,
yeah, we were 10 years old in 86.
Thanks for checking in, OGs. Yeah, so I was just like you said, it brought me back to our childhood. Dude, I was in tears. I know you said that. I was in tears.
I was crying.
Watching it. I couldn't believe how it made me feel watching this. It was I don't know, because like I said, Darryl Strawberry, you had so many icons on that team. Darryl Strawberry, he's an icon. Doc Gooden, icon. Keith Hernandez, icon. Gary Carter, rest in peace, icon. Lenny Dykstra, I mean, love him or hate him.
Not for the right reasons. Yeah.
Well, no, but love him or hate him.
Great ball player, yeah.
And I think
Mookie Wilson. I mean, like they said in the documentary, at one point in New York City, there must have been 20,000 cats in Manhattan named Mookie. That's how big they were.
Kevin Mitchell. Speaking of
Became a
cats.
star. Yeah.
Speaking of cats. Remember they talked about the cat. Like,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
cat.
Yeah.
Like, just everything about the documentary. Like I said, I know you're going to get more into it, but you wanted what I felt. It really, really, truthfully hit me hard. Like, just enjoyed it.
Well, I mean, I'll tell you a few things. I mean, like I said, the Mets are my passion, my love. My earliest sports memories all involve the Mets since I was a little kid. My babysitter was a Mets fan, so she got me into it. I had a single mom, so I didn't have like a father figure that got me into sports. My babysitter, Addie, got me into the Mets. She's the reason I became a Mets fan. And I used to watch back then, playoff games were in the daytime. So I remember watching the NLCS in the afternoon after school, having apple juice and cookies in her kitchen. I mean, it was just a different time. That's what's missing from Major League Baseball today, and what they need to bring back to capture the attention of the youth today. You got these playoff games starting at almost 9:00 at night. Most kids are in bed, dude. I don't know about you, Jay, but when I have work, I'm gonna sleep by the second or third inning. Now, when the Mets were in the playoffs back in 2015, that's how crazy it's how fast time's going by. I mean, it was a struggle for me to stay up. I mean, honestly, on weeknights when I had work and the kids had school, but
you just nailed it.
What's that?
You just nailed it. Like that's the problem. Like, I mean, we could have a whole show on it.
Oh yeah, about the games being late at night. Yeah, but back to the '86 thing. I mean, just the memories it brought back for me. It literally has me in tears. I mean, the documentary was done so well with the music that coincided with it. You know, we're products of the '80s, so the music that was in it meant so much to me, and just so many things. Like anybody who's a Mets fan, the documentary didn't necessarily tell you anything you didn't already know. If you're a Mets fan, you know these stories, but it gave you so much more insight into those stories and so much footage that you hadn't heard, and hearing more perspective from the players themselves, even now looking back. And I thought that was so cool. Like one of the things that I really enjoyed about it was obviously Gary Carter is a Hall of Famer, was a great leader, but he also had a reputation of being kind of like where's the camera? I want to be in the camera, They called him Camera Carter, And Keith Hernandez was also a leader, and he was more of the guy that the players gravitated to for leadership. And obviously there was kind of like an unsaid competition amongst Carter and Hernandez as far as who was the real leader of that team, even though they loved each other. It was reality. And one of the things I thought was really interesting in the documentary and funny, and you could just almost like Hollywood, some of the stuff that they talk about. It's like from like a movie, like Bull Durham or something. But like they would talk about how Carter would come out, like when a pitcher was struggling, Carter would come to the mound and he'd start telling the pitcher this, that, and the other thing, blah, 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 hand him the ball back. And then he'd walk back and Keith would be standing 3 feet away. He'd walk up to the pitcher. As soon as Carter got, far enough away, Keith would go, fuck that. Just throw him a fastball. So it was like from the movies, like these stories, it was so cool too, hearing like in game 6 of the NLCS, Orozco was just gassed in that game 6. He had thrown pretty much in all the games. He pitched multiple innings in game 6. The Mets took a 2-run lead in the 16th inning of that game. Orozco was out there trying to close it out, was struggling, getting hit. And Keith came to the mound and he goes, if you throw another fucking fastball, I'll kill you. I'll kill you. And then, Kevin Bass came up with 2 outs, tying and winning runs on base. Orozco just threw him 3 sliders and struck him out. So you just hear all those stories of that leadership that Keith brought to the team and just that behind-the-scenes stuff that you don't necessarily always get to hear. It was just so cool, It's so that's like some of the stuff I really, really took from it,
Oh, I'm with you. And like I said, I enjoyed even like the stories because I'm not a Mets fan, so I wouldn't know near as much as you on the history of the Mets. So for me, like the story with the cat, that was pretty crazy.
Well, that was from Doc Gooden's Heat, his book Heat, his first autobiography, when he had that story that he said Kevin Mitchell was such a badass and he saw him slice a cat's head. But Kevin Mitchell denies that ever happened.
Well, no, I'm just saying. But
yeah, they brought it all up. But another great story, now that I'm thinking of it, from the doc, another one like kind of like along the lines of the 2 stories I just told you that I'm giving the whole thing away. But no, I'm kidding. 4 hours. I'm not giving shit away. I'm telling you a few little anecdotes. But like, another great story. Everybody knows the story after the Mets clinched in game 6 of the NLCS, how when they got back on the flight from Houston to New York, they totally destroyed the plane, destroyed it. And they show the players talking about it in hindsight. And you have like like I don't know. Keith says, I don't know, $5,000 damage was done to that plane. And then they show Wally Backman, $20,000 damage to that plane. Then they show Daryl, $150,000. Nobody knows, but thousands of dollars of damage to the plane. Nobody remembers the real number. But, the story goes when they got back to New York, Frank Cashin, the general manager, reamed them out, said, you guys are professional ball players. You're supposed to, be professional, show some decorum, blah, blah, blah. Reamed them and said, you guys are going to pay for this. So when he walks out, Mookie Wilson says, no way in hell I'm paying for this, whatever. So then Davey Johnson, the manager at the time, he has the bill from the plane, whatever, thousands of dollars that they destroyed a plane. So he goes, you know what, guys? Fuck this bill. I know you guys didn't do this. It was your wives. Like, obviously joking around. Dude. And he rips it up. He goes, in a couple of days, you guys are going to win the series, and you're going to make them a ton of money. Fuck this bill. And he rips the bill up. Just so many cool stories. Now, I knew that story, too, from a great book, if you haven't read it. It's by Jeff Pearlman. It's called The Bad Guys Won. It must have came out about 10 years ago. Jeff Pearlman's one of the guys who had a lot of commentary in the documentary talking about it. But, I mean, that's a great book to read. It's called The Bad Guys Won. It's about the 86 team. And dude, all the footage of Dykstra was unbelievable, bro.
I was going to say, like, I couldn't believe, like, I mean, we had Lenny on our show, and obviously raw and unfiltered. I mean, he just says it how it is. But I was kind of surprised to see that ESPN didn't edit it. I mean, he was Lenny. He was cursing and everything. And I mean, to me, I like that. Let's be real. That's what we're all about, being real.
Yep. Yeah, it was unbelievable, dude. I mean, he had some funny stories, too. He goes, I won the fucking World Series in New York. Where do you go from there? It's history. Who's that guy that said, the world's flat, and he sailed across, and you hear the cameraman go, Columbus? He goes, yeah, Columbus. It's Columbus. He just so incoherent. It was hilarious. You gotta love Lenny. We have our guest here, Jay.
We do.
Our guest is here. Why don't you introduce our guest? Let's bring him out here.
Okay, so without further ado, we're going to bring on Rich Conroy. He's the founder of Drunk on Broad podcast, and they're a local podcast here in Philly, and they're kick-ass. So let's bring him out.
Yo. What's up, guys?
What's up, brother?
How are you?
What's up? How are we tonight?
Good, man.
Super psyched to be here. I was looking forward to it all day. So
we're excited to have
tell
you.
Us a little about your podcast.
Oh man, it's terrible. I wouldn't listen. We have 8 people who religiously follow us, who we love. Jason, we got Chris, we got Adam, we got our boys. Nah, it's a great time. We just talk all things Philly sports. Right now, we wrote off the team that we don't speak of, who is currently losing 7-0.
Aaron knows exactly.
As a Mets fan, dude, I'm in the same boat as you, bro.
But you guys have talent. That's the difference. Your team is
I don't know.
you
could say it, but dude, I mean, this season has been a nightmare. I mean, this was supposed to be the big turnaround year. They got the new owner, Steve Cohen. But look what's gone wrong. You got Jacob deGrom hasn't pitched since July 7th.
No Thor.
He never came back. Lindor, they gave a 10-year, $341 million deal, and now we don't even know if he can handle New York. I mean, this is a guy that's crying about being booed. Well, bro, you're in New York. If you don't perform, you're going to get booed. And you know how that is in Philly, too.
Oh, yeah.
You need to have a certain type of player that can handle playing in Boston, Philly, New York. And right now, the jury is out if Lindor is that guy. So
I don't
know too good about the Mets either, Rich.
You're talking to the two guys here that literally bashed Harper 3 weeks before we were actually in love with Harper.
Yeah, but you know what? In fairness to Harper, he never pulled some of the shit Lindor has.
Oh, no.
Lindor's had a terrible year. He got $341 million. He's hitting 220, missed time on a disabled list, and then gets upset that he's booed, and then does him and Baez doing thumbs down to the fans. We just talked about the 86 Mets. Could you imagine them doing this?
My God.
Come on.
Well, the funny thing is they also have a guy in Baez who they decided, all right, we're just going to trade for him. Why do you think the Cubs gave him away? It's not like he's a stand-up teammate. You got to read the tea leaves, as Big T will says. Read the tea leaves and see what happens.
Yeah, sometimes the best trades are the ones you don't make. I kind of think that the Baez trade was to satisfy the fan base, to make it. And I think Phillies have been guilty of it. All of our teams have been guilty of this. There comes a time where the fans start crying out. They want to see a move. And maybe the best move for your team has come and gone. And then the front office, they just make a move for the sake of making a move.
Or
to
put
shut
out
the
a
fan
stupid
base up.
statement like we're going to spend stupid money, but you just spend money stupidly.
That's
So it
exactly. I
just-
was thinking of that very example.
My God, can you get any more flagrant than that?
It's just,
I mean, let's spend stupid money. Yeah, they spent stupid money. McCutcheon, stupid money. Who else?
how many times have we paid Jake Arrieta? Like,
I mean,
Jesus.
Scott Kingery. Matt
Yeah.
Klentak paid the guy $26 million before he even stepped on a major
Yeah,
league
that was
baseball
awful.
field.
That's
That
terrible.
was
I
awful.
mean, are you
And-
kidding me?
And now
probably won't
then
play
we're
for
talking about the
Phillies
Mets again. They drafted Kumar Rocker 10th overall, then decided they didn't like his MRI, and then didn't offer him a contract. So you just lost a 10th overall pick.
Yeah,
So
he went
all
back to
these
school.
things with the Mets that were supposed to be so great all went to shit. Think about it.
Welcome
I
to
think-
our dumpster fire because we're in
I
yours.
think there's parallels
Thank
between the Phillies and the
There's a-
Mets.
There's a
Front
lot
office.
right now. There's a lot of parallels right now.
Yeah, we both suck.
Yeah,
We both
pretty
suck.
much. Pretty much.
I didn't even know the Phillies were losing right now, 7-0.
I don't watch. Like I tweeted out.
Did
last
Wheeler
night.
start that game or Noah?
I have no. It's a bullpen game, I believe.
Oh,
from
another
what I
joke
read.
about Major League Baseball bullpen games.
Yeah,
Ah,
stupid.
Aaron's selfishly only worried if Wheeler or Nola pitch because he has them both on his fantasy team,
That's
and
it.
he needs to win this week to beat me to get in the 14.
Well, you know what? I don't even think I need to beat you now. Joe in our league, I'm about to take his spot. I think me and you could both make the playoffs in our league now, Jay.
Oh well, that would be great.
I was looking, yeah.
First year.
I'm partial to Wheeler anyway. He's a Met that should still be a Met. Another thing that
He's a
pisses me
stud.
off about the Mets, you don't pay the guy what Philly paid him, and then you're paying relief pitchers $10 million a year. That's the mentality of the modern day Major League Baseball. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's
Wheeler's money is a bargain in the grand scheme of things. The Phillies got Wheeler, in my opinion, for a steal. At the time, it seemed like a huge contract, but when you look at what the Yankees paid Garrett Cole, I said to Jay when that happened, I said, Wheeler's going to put up comparable numbers to Cole for the life of the contract. I did say it, Jay. And think about it. You guys are getting Wheeler for like a third of the money of what the Yankees are paying Garrett Cole. Now, coming off the seasons they had, I would sound like a fool. But when you're talking a third of the money, and I thought Wheeler was just coming into his own, I think there's something to be said there. Wheeler was a steal, and the Mets are stupid that they didn't sign him. Not
Yeah,
to
but I'm
mention,
that guy.
he was a homegrown guy, basically. They got him. I mean, he wasn't homegrown per se, but he'd never played for another major league organization.
Yeah.
They got him in the Beltran deal.
I'm that guy saying and pounding the drum that we should trade him because Wheeler, to me, is the asset that could actually get you a couple A-level prospects with a team that has the worst farm system in baseball, which to me is the reason why we will never be good. Because you could even spend stupid money and look at the Yankees. They still don't win. So the point is, if you really want to build a winner, like some of these teams that are showing, like the Dodgers, yes, the Dodgers spent a lot of money, but the Dodgers also had a great farm system.
yeah.
I mean, look at teams like the Indians. They are always in contention. Maybe, obviously not this year, but the past couple of years, they've been in contention. Why? Not because they spend a lot of money, because they have a good farm system. That's the problem with the Phillies. And at least, like Rich said, at least the Mets have that. Because to me, this Phillies team, and we have people, I forget the guy's name, but he follows your show. He follows my show. I think his name is maybe Matt. I believe he says, Matt Kantz, I believe he says that the Phillies are 10 years away from being 10 years away or 5 years away from being 10 years away.
Yeah.
Basically means they're not going to be good anytime soon. And it's been that way since, 2011. I mean, the last year.
Well, I wouldn't trade Wheeler, dude. I mean, like I just said, I get your point. But there's also, to me, as a baseball fan, it gets to a certain point. I want to see guys stay on clubs long enough for like fans to be able to buy their jerseys and have them be there for a while. And like Wheeler's one guy that you're getting at a value. I get your point. You want, but he's a guy I'd hold on to. That's just me.
I agree. I just don't see how they're going to get out of this. I guess that's my point.
I don't think there's a way out, and I think that's the problem.
I
just
think
don't
maybe just
there's
let a lot
any
of the
easy
shitty
solution.
contracts expire.
And then you got to try to hopefully hit with your future draft picks and hopefully some Rule 5 guys. What I don't like about baseball is this is my big beef. I don't like that the clubs have sole control over players for the 6 years, or I could bring you up if you don't hit this amount of innings. I can bring you back down. I still have your control for you for another year. I think baseball needs to become more progressive in okay, if you sign this minor league guy to a 1-year contract and it expires, he should be a free agent. Not, okay, nope, he has to sign back with you and you have control of him for another 5 years. I hate the 6-year rule. Unless he's cut, then he can sign with anybody else. Because this is why you don't get top-tier pitchers hitting the market in their prime. A lot of them are hitting it later. Same thing with hitters. Like you see, like when Clayton Kershaw got signed, he was like, 22, and they threw the 10-year contract at him. So by the time that expires, he'll be 32. Like the big contracts, the thing that's hindering all these players from changing teams is because of the control of the team for 6 years. I don't like that. If you're not using a guy and you keep adding him and dropping like they did to Chris Paddock last year of the Padres, he was stellar, but then they kept dropping him down. Because if you keep holding him on your 50, 26-man rotation or 26-man roster?
The roster, yeah.
Yeah, if you hold him on the roster for a certain amount of games, then that becomes a year of experience. Like, that's ridiculous. Like, let these dudes just...
I'm going to have to differ with you on this one, Rich. I'll tell you why. Because baseball is different than, like, basketball and football. Yeah. Whereas, like, in basketball and football, when you get drafted, you're just going to the big club.
Yeah.
Baseball, what you're saying would basically eliminate the idea of developing players. I mean, baseball is like a whole different game. Like, you could be an A-ball and you're making money. You know what I'm saying? If you're not in the NFL, you can go to another semi-pro league and make money, or PFL. But baseball, you could be part of a team's farm system and you're getting paid. Granted, I think a better argument would be like, should these minor leaguers be paid better? But I think also what you're saying, it would make fans would never identify with players. Like, if anything, I think if anything, I'd rather see teams lock up these players when they're young for the time. In other words, I don't want to see all these guys. I think the thing that has hurt the game the most is guys switching teams too much.
Okay.
And then fans can't identify. Like, I think it would have been better. Okay, I'll give you a great example.
I like the counterpoint.
Well, I'll give you a great example. When you think of the Yankees, when they basically were shitting all over baseball throughout the 90s and into the early 2000s, when every single year they were the best team in baseball, and they had a payroll that was twice as much as the next highest. Like, when the Yankees first had a $200 million payroll, like the Red Sox were second with like a $105 million payroll. Like, the Yankees were doubling the next highest team's payroll. Now, that has kind of changed in recent years with the increase in the luxury tax and the revenue sharing.
Yeah.
But it's still a problem. But the thing is, let's go back to that time. The Oakland Athletics basically became a farm system for the Yankees.
Yeah.
Think of how much the A's could have won at that time had they been able to maintain their own players. Jason Giambi became a Yankee. Miguel Tejada didn't become a Yankee, but he became an Oriole. But I'm trying to think how many other guys. Barry Zito ended up becoming a Giant. Tim Hudson became a Brave. But there's other guys. I'm just not. It's so long ago now. I'm not remembering. But it seemed like so many of these guys became Yankees. Like, if you were on the A's, it was like the Yankees farm system. And imagine if the A's just had the resources to sign their players, and the only thing that let them have the players as long as they did was the fact that they had that 6 years of control.
Yeah.
If they didn't, I mean, they'd be out of business. There'd be no Oakland A's. They wouldn't exist in Major League Baseball. And the fact that the fans can, at least, when you bring a player up, if you're a fan of a team, you can go buy that player's jersey and know that they're going to be on your team for a while. So if anything, to me, the argument would be like, hey, let's take care of this guy if he's playing well for us, and let's lock him up. I want to see guys spend their entire careers with one team, like Derek Jeter did or David Wright did. That's what's lacking in Major League Baseball, in my opinion.
Yeah, for chasing the titles.
Well, if I could chime in, I kind of look at both sides of what you both said. I'm kind of in the middle. This is my opinion. I think the problem that baseball really needs to focus on is the salary cap. They need to have a minimum, because that's how a lot of these teams are just not competing. So I think that's where they really do got to look.
Well, I got to come in here because you guys are kind of on opposite spectrums of your points here. Basically, what Rich is saying is like the anti-salary cap, like players just become free agents at any point. But here's what you're not taking into account. Major League Baseball definitely takes care of their players more than any other sport. The money's guaranteed. NFL money's not guaranteed. Basketball takes great care of their players, but there's a lot less players. Baseball has so many more players. 26-man roster, 30 teams, plus all your minor leagues.
But do you not disagree?
A lot of guys that are getting paid, and it's guaranteed money. But here's the thing, Jay. But here's my second point. Major League Baseball has by far the most powerful players union in sports. It's one of the most powerful unions in the country.
What are they doing?
The union's never going to allow a salary cap. When you're talking about a salary cap, that's what I'm saying. You guys are on the opposite point. Like Rich is talking about like more rights for the players, blah, blah, blah. But a salary cap is like taking the rights away from the players.
I'm not saying a salary cap. I'm saying a salary floor for teams.
Oh, misunderstood.
That's what I meant. I said salary
you.
cap. I meant salary floor,
I
meaning
misunderstood you.
that the Pittsburgh Pirates have to spend a certain amount of money.
I agree with
every
that.
year.
Yeah.
That's where I think.
Royals,
I think that's what the problem is. I think the problem is you need to raise the standard of the small market teams.
Okay, I'm 100% in agreement with that.
Because that is why baseball has become a joke. That's part of the reason.
100%.
Obviously.
Okay, yeah. You were piggybacking off my A's point. I just totally lost. That's my bad. I totally just got lost.
Well, no, and I got what you were saying. I guess I just said it wrong. I said salary cap. I meant salary floor.
Yeah, okay. Salary floor.
I don't know what half these teams are waiting for.
What's that, Rich?
Like the small market teams, like what are they waiting for?
Well,
Like,
they're going to wait.
I get like Tampa Bay is one of the best like developmental teams in the league. They always can do it with a small like amount of like what was it when they went to the World Series? Was it like 2 years ago? And then it was $78 million.
It was last year in the pandemic, right? When
$78 million was their entire payroll.
Why
not sign a big bat, or why not sign another? Like I don't I get the philosophy of what they're trying to do. But then at the end of the season, it's like, okay, well, this guy's probably like, we'll let this guy go. This guy goes. And they just keep bringing up talent. I understand they have that talent. But like Jason said, you need that salary floor. Like you need to force these guys to spend and get a little bit better.
100%.
Dude, they were in the World Series in 2008 against the Phillies.
Yeah, I know.
And they didn't have a lot of money.
Get into Tampa Bay. I mean, they're like the ringleaders of other shit that to me is destroying the game. Like we just talked about bullpen games.
Oh, my God, the opener. Yeah.
The opener.
I hate the opener.
Opening a can of worms to make the game suck.
The openers and the closers, yeah.
Nah, I mean, there's so much we can get into, but
yeah.
No, I mean, but that's just where I stand as far as baseball. You know. Anyway, Rich, I'd be interested to hear what are your picks for tonight's Thursday night game, Giants Redskins. If you want to get into an NL East pick,
you want to?
I mean, I should say NFC East. We were just talking baseball.
I'm going to have to take Washington. Oh my God, the Giants are terrible. When I forget the wide receiver from the Giants who was blocking his own lineman last week. That's how you know the coaching staff's not getting along. Did you see that?
I did. It's ridiculous.
That was one of the I was talking to a guy today at my clinical site, and he played like arena ball. I'm like, bro, you ever seen that? And he's like, no, that's stupid. No, that's really stupid. I'm like, exactly. Insane. Why is your wide receiver blocking your lineman? And they're engaged in each other. Like, what are you doing? So I have to go Washington, but it's not going to be a good game because Thursday night.
It's going to be awful.
It's going to be like 17-6.
Yeah,
I said
it will be a snooze fest.
Well, I said 17-9, so you're right where I'm at.
Yeah. But that being said, though, I got to be honest. I think the Eagles and Cowboys, maybe it's not the NFC least because I think Dallas and Philly both look a lot better than I anticipated. Hurts looks great. I mean, what do you guys think? I want to know what you think. Who's going to win that division? Obviously, it's going to be Philly or Dallas. I think we'd all agree there.
Yeah, it's so tough. Like, it really is because I don't know where to put. Dallas now has a bunch of injuries to their defense, which was already brutal. I mean, they got some rookies, Micah Parsons, and then they drafted. Then they got the other linebacker. I forget his name.
I can't remember.
But then you still have Jalen. Like, that team is poised to be great. Like, I'm not going to lie, and this is coming from an Eagles fan. This team is poised to be great. But you have a dickhead owner in Jerry Jones. Who wants to control everything. And then you have a moron in Mike McCarthy, who Aaron Rodgers should thank him for giving him that Super Bowl ring and dubbing him a competent head coach, because that guy is not a competent head coach.
Yeah.
They have all the pieces, but it's just one of those teams with you have a lack of leadership. You're not going to move forward. You're not moving forward under Jerry Jones or Mike McCarthy. So you could throw them out the window. The Eagles, what's going to kill them is you need to see how Nick Sirianni keeps going. You need to see better. You need to see Jalen Hurts stretch the field. This 3.5 yards per attempt is not going to cut it. That's worse than Joe Flacco when he was getting crushed playing for the Jets last year. His was like a 4.2. So you need to see the average depth of the target. It needs to go up. You need to stretch the field. Obviously, it was Atlanta. You didn't have to do that. That's fine. But you need to see Hurts step up even more and make more downfield passes. You need to see Sirianni adapt. That line needs to stay healthy. Washington is still my dark horse for the division because that defense is so brutal. And somehow I feel like they can just sneakily win games. But the Eagles have a tough schedule. So if I have to give it to anybody, I give the edge to the Eagles just because of hopefully their offensive line and their defense is playing better. They're going to get McLeod back. It should be the Eagles. Everybody thinks it should be the Cowboys, but I think it's going to be Washington. For some reason, it's Washington for me, even with Taylor Heineke.
You think Washington's going to win the division?
I do.
Before I get more into that, I wanted to ask you something. Do you think Ezekiel Elliott has lost a step?
Yes.
Totally.
He's not elusive anymore.
I think that's a huge wild card here. I think he looks terrible.
Tony Pollard looked better than him, and Tony Pollard looked better than him last year.
Yeah,
Tony Pollard should be starting.
100%. It's mind-boggling with Zeke. I mean, he went from like utter domination. He just hasn't looked like the same player, and it was just like out of nowhere. It's not like you saw like a gradual regression. He just hasn't seemed like the same player like the last 2 years.
How old is he now?
Like 28.
28, I think. I have to look.
I'm telling you, man, there's something about that 28 age. They keep saying it, and I always argue it, but it just seems like that is the number. Like,
it's just weird, though.
Most running backs just like fall off the face of the earth. I don't get it.
Couldn't shake a practice squad safety last week. Honestly, Dak held on to the ball too long when he threw that swing pass, but Zeke caught it and needed to make, I think, Adams. They just signed him from the practice squad Tampa Bay did to play in that game, and that kid came up huge. He needed to shake one defender from the 4-yard line and literally just stood there and walked into him and got tackled.
Yeah,
like Zeke of old would have made him miss, would have been cocky as shit, flipped the ball, been eaten. But Zeke is like, I have no idea what happened to the guy. It is so funny that he's just and I mean, I don't like Zeke, so this is great. Couldn't happen to a better guy. But his falling off is hilarious. And all my friends who have him in fantasy, I was picking on my boy Gabe last night. Shout out Gabe, the Zeke owner. He's like, I'm like, oh yeah, he lost a step. He's probably going to rush for like 875 yards. Want to put $20 on it? I'm like, Gabe, I'm sorry, dude. Tony Pollard's probably going to start, and just getting them all riled up. But like you guys said, he just doesn't look the same. He's not elusive. Right. He doesn't have burst. I don't know what's going on with him.
I just think that could be the big thing that to me sways it to the Eagles. I don't see Washington winning the division. What do you think, Jay?
I personally believe that look who it is before we go there. We have to give a shout out to Mr. Yes.
Don.
There he is. Mr. Don.
Co-host.
Thanks for checking in. Yes. If you haven't checked him out, follow him everywhere on Twitter, Facebook. Yeah.
You guys have something fun coming up, don't you?
We do. I didn't want to mention it, but you just brought it up, so I don't know if we should.
I said it on Tuesday.
Oh, you already brought it up?
Yeah, I brought it up on Tuesday.
Okay, so yeah, we are going to be doing a hockey podcast. It's going to be a bi-weekly podcast.
Awesome.
Called Drunk on Ice.
Nice.
So, soon to come.
It's going to be fun. I can't wait to hear more about it. But please get back into your show. Talk about
we're good.
Who you got. Who do you got?
Well, I'm probably going to be weird because I'm going to go with Dallas. I still think even with the defensive struggles, I got in an argument with someone today about it in one of my fantasy leagues. Obviously, I'm a huge fantasy football guy. I have 14 teams. Actually, no. I went 11-6. So how many is that? That's 17 teams.
17 for all you math majors out there.
So I went 11-6 in the first week of fantasy. Obviously, I lost in our league. So did you. So,
R.I.P.
But no, I got an argument with somebody about on one of my fantasy leagues about Dak. Like they continuously bash him, and they're like, oh well, he's just a shoulder injury away. Like everyone's. Dude, I could say that about every player. Every player is an injury away from being out. My point is he looks healthy. The guy, if he stays healthy, I could see him throwing for 6,000 yards this year with those wide receivers, even with Michael Gallup getting hurt. Because let's face it, those tight ends are big boys.
17-game season, there's a few guys this year that are going to threaten 6,000 yards.
And Dak's one of them. So I honestly think, and I believe – talking about the Zeke thing, I believe that if the coach doesn't remain an idiot, because I believe he is an idiot. But
that's his career move.
If he realizes that, wow, this running back's not the answer, maybe he makes that switch to Pollard. I think that all of a sudden makes Dallas a two-way threat, because Pollard, to me, is the X factor. Like, that guy, I mean, I wish the Eagles had him. I mean, he's a stud. Like, you could tell.
I agree.
You could tell that he's just, he's a spot away from becoming a lead, star back.
Who started over him at Memphis?
You got me.
Kenneth Gamewell.
I was just going to say Gainwell.
Gamewell started over Tony Pollard.
I didn't want to say it because I didn't know.
Him and Antonio Gibson wide receivers, because that's how good Kenneth Gamewell is.
I
love Kenneth Gamewell. He is like, I don't fall in love with running backs, but if you watch that kid's college tape and you see the two other backs who are super successful that he had the lead job over because they couldn't take those guys out of the offense, and Kenneth Gamewell was that good. Kenneth Gainwell's that dude. He also, Miles Sanders was saying how Kenneth Gainwell taught him so much about the position. Like, that's fucking crazy. A rookie is teaching the seasoned vet.
That's true.
The 3-year guy in your offense. Oh, man, he taught me a lot about the running back position.
Yeah.
Dude, I love Kenneth
Gainwell. You just brought up a great point. Like, honestly, I was high on Gainwell myself coming in out of the draft. Like, I thought the Eagles got him as a steal, honestly, because I'm actually one that believes that if for some reason Miles Sanders doesn't get re-signed, I'll be okay.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think Gainwell's that good. I know right now, like, obviously, the trendy thing to say is, oh, he's only a third down back or he's only a pass catching back. But I think you just nailed it by what you said. Like, this guy started over Antonio Gibson, who a lot of people right now are saying could be the next CMC Light.
Yeah.
By the way. So, honestly, like, Kenneth Gainwell, I like the fact that the Eagles have, going. All right, so my pick is Dallas. I don't want to get off the question that you asked me, but I think the Eagles. I picked them originally. Going into this season, I said 7-10, and I think that's still about where they finish. But I think that could change a couple games depending on if Hurts is the real deal, and I personally believe he is. I kind of have, and that's another argument I've had on. I mean, you've seen the arguments. Like, I've been high on Hurts, and I had to fight off people saying, "Oh, I'd rather have Deshaun Watson." Like, listen, I am not going to sit here and say Deshaun Watson is not a top 5, talent.
He is.
He is.
No question.
But I don't believe that you need a top 5 quarterback, first of all, to win the Super Bowl. Because obviously the Eagles won the Super Bowl with Nick Foles, who's
Trent Dilfer.
I don't think you need Deshaun Watson if he was the best quarterback. But
correct. So my point is with Hurts, I'm not looking at it. I'm not looking at the range of where he falls in the top. Is he a top 5 or is he a top 10 guy? I'm looking at Hurts as a guy that is a proven winner. The guy won everywhere he went in college. The guy has the heart of a lion. Like, if you see and listen to his interviews, the guy talks with more swagger and presence than probably 40-year vets that have been in the league that are retired and fucking on the podium in the Hall of Fame. So, to me, Jalen Hurts is that guy that I look at and I say, that's the guy I want running my team, because that's the guy that's going to end up winning a Super Bowl. And if it's not with the Eagles, if they just say, oh, he's not the guy and they get rid of him, I guarantee you he will win a Super Bowl somewhere, because he has the mindset that nobody's going to be better than him. He really legit, like, is one of the best interviews I've ever seen as far as a young guy. I mean, look at the guy. I mean, every way he commands himself on the field. And then, like I said, last year everyone wanted to point to, oh, well, he was inaccurate. Okay, well, he just threw for – now, granted, the Falcons are a piece of shit, poor team defensively.
Yeah.
But he did have a 78% completion percentage. So he did do something right. And whether or not I agree, I do think they have to look at the yards per target and kind of air it out more. But I think the point is if they slowly get him to feel comfortable, that's going to come. And I think having a Devontae Smith, who on our show last week, I predicted, well, I told Aaron that he's going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year in the NFL. I know that's a bold prediction, but I believe it. I really do. After 1 week, he's a little bit on his way. I mean,
I could see it.
I know a lot of times quarterbacks win those awards, but I think he's going to have a year. I'm not necessarily saying he's going to break Justin Jefferson's record, but I believe he's going to have a huge impact for this Eagles team, and he's definitely going to go. I think he breaks 1,000 yards. I think the routes that guy runs, I mean, watching him when I watched him in college, I mean, and I hate to say it, I know, people, I know they'll say pump the brakes, but he runs routes like Jerry Rice out of college. I mean, that's the level he is on running routes. So when I see that, and I see a guy that, just is a playmaker, the guy won the Heisman. Now, I get it. A lot of times Heisman's come in the NFL and they bust. But I don't see that happening here.
Ron Dane
Smith is a stud. Not to take away from
3 high schools over from my high school.
Not to take away from Jalen Waddle, who Aaron loves.
I was going to say, I think it's going to be a fun couple of years.
I do
with these Alabama products on my Dolphins and your Eagles with Tua and Waddle and Smith.
Well, we both said that. I think
that guy playing QB in New England now. Let's not forget him.
Who, Mac?
Yeah, exactly. A lot of Alabama here. It's going to be a fun few years.
It is.
So so Dallas is your pick, though.
Yeah, so Dallas is my pick, but I think the Eagles could surprise. Like, I think it could be Eagles or Dallas. I'm going to go with Dallas because that's who I said. But I think if the Eagles win a game or two that they were supposed to lose and Dallas kind of does the opposite, I think then that, yes, the Eagles win. So I think it's definitely going to be one or the other, which you kind of, Rich said the Redskins, which I'm not going to lie, dude. The Redskins are that good defensively that you're right. I think they could be that team that, look, they did it last year with who they have at quarterback. I mean, Alex Smith.
Yeah,
but he was hurt.
I know. He's a gimp
So,
at that point.
I'm saying they had, like, basically the same quarterback situation they have now, and look how they did. So I think they definitely could surprise too. The thing I'm worried about with the Redskins, like, I think, like, their star players, like the Antonio Gibsons and the McLaurins, I think they get frustrated because they're both. I'm not saying they're like selfish, but they're like guys that want the ball, and what happens to those kind of guys when the quarterback's not that good and things start falling apart. They start bickering, and what I'm saying, like, that could cause a little bit of a problem. That's the only thing I could see happening there. But yeah, that's where I'm at.
Well, listen, why don't we move on? And why don't we have Rich join us?
Yeah, we did ask him.
Yes. Are you ready?
So it's time for our favorite segment,
the picks of the week.
And I don't want to put him on the spot, but I did tell you beforehand. So why don't you go first, Don? Well, first of all, before we get into the picks of the week, real quick.
Hey, what are you saying?
Why did I say Don? Jesus Christ.
He's walking off. Hey! No.
Jesus Christ. Rich.
Yes, sir.
Why don't you I was telling Aaron that you have your own style of music. Like, why don't you tell us what your musical interests are before we get into the picks of the week? Because I wanted to ask you that earlier.
Oh, man. I listen to pretty much everything except country. I don't do country. I just can't. Do it. I just never found it music for my ears.
Do you have a favorite band?
So my favorite band is 311. So I'm a huge 311 guy. I like the whole reggae rock thing, them, Dirty Heads, Sublime, not Sublime with Rome. But if I dive deeper, I grew up a huge Atreyu fan, Avenged Sevenfold, The Used, bands of that nature.
Okay. Did we lose him?
You there?
Can you hear me? Am I there?
Oh, we got you.
We just froze for a second.
Oh, that's weird. I got full Wi-Fi down here too.
We got you.
I'm sorry. So it's Alice in Chains, 311, Atreyu, Hatebreed back in the day. Jay, you were just there last night.
Yeah.
I used to listen to those guys and just run through a wall. The Fetus was my jam. But I listen to everything. And then a lot of gangster rap, a lot of old school rap, nothing new. I can't tell you the last time I actually turned the radio on and heard something I liked. I'm not a real big fan of like the new age rock. And to me, it sounds whiny. And I just not a real big fan. So I kind of stick to like everything from like the 90s and the early 2000s is like where I put myself. Like Wolf Mother is one of my favorite bands. And it's just crazy that they really only had like success off of 2 albums and then they're like done. So
Yeah, Wolfmother's a great band.
But I listen to pretty much everything. I have to listen to more Megadeth because I can't recall. I can't recall a song.
And Guns
but if
N'
I
Roses.
heard them, I would know them. Guns N'
Roses.
So one of my early shows that I went to when I was 13 years old in Atlantic City, I believe it was at the House of Blues, was Velvet Revolver.
Okay.
So saw Slash, my man Scott Weiland, R.I.P.
Yeah, I saw Velvet Revolver probably about 7-8 times in their
fantastic band.
2 years of
they didn't come out for like
Rock
3
and roll.
hours. And like my buddy's uncle was hammered, who was chaperoning us. So that was great, trying to navigate that nonsense. But it was one of the best concerts, and just seeing Scott Weiland perform was just like once in a lifetime. And
yeah, Velvet Revolver was awesome. Awesome. So
But,
why don't you start us off? What's your pick of the week?
Pick of the week? Well,
let's tell the audience what this is in case they're new to the show.
So,
basically, it's something Jay and I do every week that we want everybody to check out. It could be like a great album, a rock DVD, a concert DVD, a great heavy metal book, autobiography, something like that. So why don't you start us off, Rich?
So I would like to say, let me see. For rock and roll, man, this is tough.
It doesn't have to be. We're not going to pigeonhole you. You're our guest. You tell us
whatever you want.
I appreciate it because what I was coming up with, I'm a real big movie guy, and
That's
they have
fine.
So I listened to the "How Did This Get Made" podcast.
Okay,
I don't know if you guys have ever heard it.
I have not heard that.
It's
one.
Paul Scheer, Jason Mantzoukas, and June Diane Raphael. You guys watch The League?
I have not.
The League?
I have never.
Never saw The League?
Nope.
So it was about fantasy football. Jay,
Okay.
you need to get on it. It's hilarious. It's the two of the main guys from The League. So what they do is they watch a terrible movie and discuss everything about this movie. And that's why it's called How Did This Get Made? And it's some of the funniest shit, like Mannequin. I think they did Spinal Tap.
Hey, I have to confess, I didn't like the movie Mannequin, but I loved the cheesy Jefferson Starship song. Nothing's gonna stop us now, and we can feel this
Brutal.
together.
Fucking brutal.
Sorry.
No, that's fantastic because that was actually just playing upstairs.
Oh,
When I
nice.
got home. My wife, I forget what the station she listens to. It's like 70s, 80s, 90s, and it's always like a lot of Heart because she loves Heart. So a lot of Heart, and the song about all I want to do is make love to you. Like that's her jam.
Excellent song.
And yeah,
I love Heart.
yeah,
Love him.
Believe it or not.
It just makes me laugh because every time I'm like, babe, on Pandora, you have to start hitting like buttons so we hear other songs because it's the same 10 songs. But if it makes her happy, that's all that matters. But check out the How Did This Get Made podcast. It's one of the funniest, literally one of the funniest podcasts. If you love bad movies, like I love bad movies, like Tammy and the T-Rex or something just equally outlandish, they have it on there. They talk about it. They break it down, discuss it. And it's good for a laugh if you're like feeling down. You're like, I need to laugh. Let me listen to these three break down a really terrible movie that you're going to be like, I love that movie though. So
That's an awesome pick of the week, man.
Well,
So I
definitely
recommend you
gonna
guys.
check
Dude, that's phenomenal. Like you were like sorry and apologizing. That's awesome. That's like that might
I
be
didn't
the
have
best
anything
thing
rock
we've had.
based. That's why, but I love the show. Like the reason why I had to come on the show because I love the stories. So a lot of people, when I listen to things, I do things for stories and things that trigger like my like feel good things. Like my feel good, like, all right, put me back at a concert back in the day. This is like, you guys give off those vibes. And this is why I enjoy this. I don't watch it live because I can't get it. I can't do it then. But when I'm driving in the car, I'm going on a nice trip. I put you guys on, you guys talk sports, but then you get in the rock and you start bringing on your guests. And it brings me back to like when I was at those concerts and how like of a great time I was having. And it just, hearing you guys be so excited about it makes me excited about it. And that's why I really wanted to come on because I love hearing you guys talk music. I love when you guys share stories. I need things that tell a story. And I think your podcast is perfect for doing that and setting the tone for like good vibes and triggering those good memories for others. So thank you guys for what you do. It's awesome. I really do enjoy the fuck
here
out of the show.
on live TV. Like literally, you just like honestly, you just made my night.
No,
Why don't you go next, Jay? I want to hear your pick of the week.
Well, my pick of the week, you probably should already know because you know me. I always have a reason for my pick of the week.
All right, so let's hear
Dating back. I don't know if Rich heard our very first show, but I had So my picks of the week were always, my first 5 were from, I called them the red truck picks. It was basically 5 albums that we blasted for 2 years straight when I had my red pickup truck back when we were 16 and we were hooligans, me and Aaron. That was like the reason I did it. So I always have a reason. So my pick of the week this week, I figured since I went and just saw a Megadeth show, it's not a Megadeth album for my pick of the week, but my pick of the week is actually the recent documentary that was on Gibson TV, and it's a series called Icons, and this was Dave Mustaine Icons. So I'm a sucker for documentaries. I love good documentaries, and anybody that isn't a Megadeth fan, if you haven't saw it, the best documentary that I ever saw in the past about Megadeth was Megadeth Behind the Music. Well, let me tell you, this series that I just watched, it's only an hour long, but I'll tell you what, man, Gibson does a phenomenal job. Like, so basically, it's Dave Mustaine narrating his life story from early childhood to the end. Like, so they edit out where the people ask the questions, and it's basically just him spouting off a narration of his life. And it was just phenomenally put together. Like, it starts out, so when you pop it on, it starts out with the Holy Wars riff, and they have like all of the Vic Rattlehead, who's Megadeth's mascot, doing like different things on the thing, and then they go from that, and then Dave Mustaine sitting in a chair like this, and he just narrates, and it's kind of like how they did it. It was like almost night and day. Like, you see that all this chaos, and then they just have Dave Mustaine. So it's like you didn't think it would mix, but honestly, like he told a lot of stories of his time with Metallica, which I always love hearing those stories because obviously he was in Metallica, and that that was that was a painful time for Dave Mustaine. And partially that is the reason why Dave Mustaine has become so great, because he kind of used that as a fire to, basically, he always said like he wanted to be the meanest, baddest, loudest, fastest metal band in the history of, the world. And they kind of went on to accomplish that. I mean, obviously there's bands that have come after that are, maybe like death metal and stuff. But as far as the thrash, metal scene, I mean, he pretty much wrote the script. So, awesome documentary. Dave Mustaine Icons. If you haven't checked it out, it's on Netflix. You can check it out on YouTube. So that's my pick of the week.
Awesome pick. All right, so I'll go. And you know what? I'm not going to do anything super original because we actually already talked about it, but I just have to get back to it because it means so much to me. My pick of the week is something we talked about earlier in the show. Check it out on ESPN or ESPN Plus. Once Upon a Time in Queens. It's the 30 for 30 about the 86 Mets. I really believe it's the best 30 for 30 ever made. And I'm not saying that because I'm a Mets fan. You could not even like baseball, and it's unbelievable. It just encapsulates New York in the 70s into the 80s, and it's everything about it. It's just unbelievable to watch. Obviously, all the struggles with Dwight Gooden and Darryl Strawberry and how that team, people thought it was going to be a dynasty. There you go. Another pick of the week right there. Everybody thought that team was going to be a dynasty, and it didn't work out that way. There was always like some undercurrent of negativity going on. I don't want to ruin it. My pick of the week is Once Upon a Time in Queens. It literally had me in tears, brought me back to my childhood. Check it out, the new 30 for 30 on ESPN. Short and sweet. That's my pick of the week.
Well, Rich is a diehard baseball guy too. You could tell just by his passion. And Rich, you'll love it. Like,
you got to watch it.
Yeah, I'm a Phillies fan like you, and I saw it. I saw the first two. I know you weren't on earlier in the show, but I did see the first part, and it was phenomenal. Like, I was like in tears, and I'm not even a Mets fan. Like, it just brought me back to like our child, like you were just talking about how our show does. It kind of had that same feeling and vibe. Like, basically, it made you feel like where you were when you were a kid.
Yeah,
so, it was unbelievable.
Check it out. Sounds awesome.
Cool.
Gentlemen, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Go
put my son down. So,
yeah, before you go, why don't you please tell everybody, all our guests, where they can find you, all your social media, and Don as well. Like, why don't you share that out real quick?
So you could find us Tuesday nights, YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter, Periscope, whatever it is. We do StreamYard as well. You can find us on any pretty much platform, Anchor Podcasts, Google, Spotify, Apple. We're all over. 3 dudes, sometimes 4, depending if Oscar can make it. Just talk sports, have fun, and it's what we do. I'm at Dickie C620, at Drunk on Broad Podcast. Mr. Seaway Science, at Mr. Seaway Science. That's Don. Nick's on IG, and then Oscar's at Goro Cordova. My man Oscar changed his name 2 years ago. Took the family name. Gotta love it. Oscar, love you, brother. But thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate this. It was an honor. I had a blast. Let's do this again, and rock on, boys. Rock on.
Thanks for coming on, Rich. Rock on, everybody. See you next week.
Peace out.
And that's our show. Tune in next time for more Sports and Metal with Jason Voorhees and Aaron Savage. Woo, yeah! Got something to say? Hit us up at sportsandmetal0423 at yahoo.com or on Twitter at sportsandmetal.